This is Community Forum, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. Today, our guests are Mayra Lagunas and LANIER ZIMMER, who are both from the Golden Apple Foundation. They're here to talk about the organization and its efforts to recognize and encourage outstanding teaching. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Great. Let's start off with you, Mayra. Just tell us about your role at the organization and actually how you came to it.
I used to work for the University of Illinois as a recruiter at Urbana-Champaign, and LANIER actually went to work, we were working together. LANIER went to work for Golden Apple and reached out to me a couple of months ago and said, hey Mayra, there's a positioning opening up and I would love for you to come and join the team. And so she sort of headhunted me out. Wow. And the qualities or the skills for the job were very similar, and so they were easily translatable into the Golden Apple Foundation. I do recruitment, and I was hired to do recruitment mostly out of the Chicago Public Schools. So.
Awesome. And you, LANIER, you recruited her?
Yes, yeah. So I'm also So I'm also do recruitment and placement. So recruiting for CPS and then also statewide, as we're a statewide program, and then also helping scholars once they graduate from college finding teaching jobs. So.
Okay. And why the passion for education for both of you? This question.
I truly believe that every child should have access to quality education and the power of education, as well as the power of a good teacher. And so working for an organization that promotes teaching excellence and helps students who want to become teachers be the best teachers they can be is something that I'm very passionate about, and that I'm excited I have the opportunity to help the mission move forward.
Well, the Golden Apple Foundation does a lot more than, help create awesome teachers and place them in schools of need. They really encompass persistence in college, and they take care of their students that they take in. It's a giant family that really takes care of their own, and that really aligns with my with my interest in what I think is important to do in service to your community and service to the Latino community. And so they really help mold these students. They help them persist in college. They help them graduate. They help place them. So it's really, it really covers everything that I think is important for Latino students and students in general. Okay,
so you said a very important word, one big family. It's a really big family. Absolutely. How did this family get its start? What was the origin of that?
Sure. So the founders are Mike and Pat Koldyke, and they were watching the Oscars once, and they were saying, we should be celebrating our children's educators. And so that's how the Golden Apple Foundation started, was with the Teachers Awards. So we award 10 teachers every year.
From Illinois? From
Illinois. So the Scholars Program is statewide, but the awards program is from Chicago and the surrounding counties. Okay. And so that started back in the 1980s, and then after a few classes, we call them classes. Each group of 10.
Each cohort of 10 becomes a class for us.
Yeah, and they're called fellows. And the fellows wanted to give back, so they started this scholarship for students who want to become teachers. So that's what's really great about this organization, is that it's leveraging great teachers and having them share their experiences with new teachers. So
it was born from the watching the Oscars. And how when does your awards ceremony take place?
It's in October, so it'll be
October of every year?
Yes. So the teachers were just awarded during Teacher Appreciation Week in May. So we call them surprise visits. So we come into the school and surprise them in their classroom, and that's when they receive the award. But the actual ceremony will be in October.
And who nominates these teachers? How do they get selected? Tell me about some of that, please, because I know that's what you're probably most well known for as an organization. Yeah,
so the selection process, anybody can nominate an educator, a principal. We'll typically do it, a counselor or somebody who's working within the school. The person themselves cannot, or the person can't nominate themselves. So as long as the nomination comes from outside of the person, that's how the nominations are selected.
And then they go through. They have to meet some criteria, or they have to have several nominations in order to get selected?
So they have to complete the application. It's a rigorous application with several essays, and then they also need letters of support. So those could be parents, they could be principals.
Now this is for the winners of the Golden Apple, or for to be a scholar?
This is for the teachers. Okay. Yeah, the teacher awards.
Okay.
So nominations are actually open now. So if anyone knows, every year they rotate the teaching area. So this year it's pre-K through 3rd grade.
Okay.
The most recent class was 4th grade through 8th grade, and then the previous year was high school. So every year they change.
So it's a rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So you're awarding those early childhood educators and kindergarten?
Yes, pre-K through third grade.
And, yeah, wow.
And
so they have to write essays, you were saying?
Yes, so the teachers, once they've been nominated, and what's funny is a lot of teachers are hesitant to actually complete the application because they're all always so humble and they don't want, you know, the attention. They just want to be focused on their students. So it actually does take a lot for us to convince really great teachers to apply because they're so focused in on their kids, they don't want to take away time completing this application.
And once this process happens, then you have a board that reviews this, or?
Yes, there's a review committee, and they're fellows who have won before, and yes, it's very thorough.
And then you have the huge ceremony. Once
we do have the surprise visits where we go to a variety. So it's the fellows who can come to visit. Sometimes we invite aldermen or anybody involved in the community, and we come and surprise them during a week.
And our board members come as well. And
our board members as well. And they come up into their classrooms and just really show up with this giant check because they do receive a paid stipend. They receive paid sabbatical, correct?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And they will also receive classes at Northwestern.
Wow,
yeah.
Sounds awesome. And the sabbatical, they could take a year or half a year and use it to study, use it to grow?
So it's 1 quarter. Yeah,
1 quarter of study at Northwestern?
Yes, so they can take as many classes as they'd like at Northwestern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now tell me about recruiting, I guess, high school and college students to become part of the Golden Apple. How does that happen, and who can become part of the Golden Apple that way?
Sure. So we have 3 entry points. Our traditional is high school, so students right now who are rising seniors, our application is actually open, and they can apply now. But there's also, we have the Explore program, and this is for community college students. So next year, for kids starting in their first year of community college, they can apply to our program. They'll enter into the program, and then if they like us, we like them, then we'll offer them an opportunity to become a pathway. And that's the 3rd entry point, and that is for second-year community college students who have plans to transfer to a 4-year, and then or second-year sophomores at universities.
And what's unique about this opportunity is that the scholars can nominate themselves. So they would go ahead and fill out a nomination form, which is online when you're actually created. It's the first year we've gone online with the application. So they nominate themselves, receive a link for an application, and have to complete that application.
So what's in this application? Tell me about that whole process.
So it's biographical information. There are 3 essays, 4th optional one, and then there are 3 references as well. And then they'll need to mail in their transcript and then their ACT score as well.
So tell me about those essays. What do they have to write about? Because you said there's a 4th optional essay, right?
So the optional is just if there's anything that they want to tell us that maybe wasn't covered in the application. But we want to know, why they want to be a teacher, if they've had a positive teacher in the past who has helped them, and why they're committed to teaching in schools of need.
Okay, now that's a word that comes up. Doing my research for the show, I see the word need, schools of need. What makes a school of need, and why focus on those schools?
I believe that's 30%. We deem a school of need if they are 30% low income, or what was?
60% or less of the students meet the state testing standards.
They don't meet them?
They don't meet them, so 60% or below.
This is for the, what do you call the state test?
The ISAT.
The ISAT. And 60% of the students in that school don't meet the the standard?
Don't meet the standard, right.
Okay. And so what's challenging in those schools, or what do they need? Are they in poor areas, or what's going on there?
Well, typically the schools are in communities. Again, we said the high school is 30% low income. These are schools who are underfunded or under-resourced. These are schools with, typically, a lot of the schools are minority students or underrepresented populations, and so they're the ones in need of the best teachers, the teachers who can prepare them, who can motivate them, the best educated teachers.
And I think what is great about the Golden Apple program is that those first 2 years in teaching are critical, and there's in general a very high turnover rate, whereas 84% of our students finish their 5-year teaching commitment continue on. So it's helping those kids see the same teachers' faces come back and not have that turnover.
And what happens during the time that a person is a scholar with your organization? What do you provide them once they're accepted and part of it?
So there is a mentorship component throughout. In their undergraduate careers, we do reach out to them, and there's consistent connection in a continued effort to stay in touch with the student, to make sure that they're on task with their GPA, with their courses, and with the course selection that they need in order to enter the College of Education. And there's also paid stipend for an internship that they do during the summer, which we call Summer Institute.
And that's really the heart of the program. What Summer Institute is, it's a 5-week residential program at our partner universities. So for example, DePaul is our first one. They spend 5 weeks with us. We cover room and board, and we give them a $2,000 stipend. And in the morning, they're in a classroom, and they'll always be in a school of need. So it'll be a summer school or a year-round school, and they'll be helping a teacher. And then in the afternoon, they're taught by teachers who have won the Golden Apple Award.
So what do they learn from these teachers that they're working with?
So they'll cover all different types of topics like classroom management. They go over introspective writing, different teaching techniques, so a variety of topics related to teaching.
And there are reflective seminars where they can just talk about their experiences, and they are placed in classrooms, correct?
So these reflective seminars, that's one thing I've seen over and over in educational literature, is that teachers need to become more reflective. What happens in those reflective seminars with these teachers, and how do these up-and-coming teachers use that?
Yeah, so the scholars really connect with their reflective seminar. So reflective seminar leader. The leader will come to the different classrooms and observe the student in action, and then they'll come twice a week and they'll talk about, like, were there any problems? Did you struggle? What was amazing about the day? What do you need help with or suggestions? So I think it's a time where they really think about their experiences, they go over strategies of how to improve, and they really open up, and I think it's a kind of a very vulnerable moment for the students, and I think that's where you really grow and connect and learn.
So you've told us about the Summer Institute and some of what happens there. Now, who do you recruit to become a scholar? What kind of student are you looking for? Because I'm sure there's some high school seniors out there, juniors, maybe sophomores, even thinking, well, maybe I'd like to become a teacher. I don't know, I'm curious, what's going to happen? Who do you search for?
Sure. We look for students who are, even if they're just a little bit interested. We actually are starting a new program where we're going to have a shadow day this year at DePaul University on July 14th. So students who are interested and they want to come take a tour of DePaul, get an admissions presentation, and then shadow our scholars in the afternoon. That's a really good opportunity for a student to kind of see what we're all about and see if teaching is something they might want to consider.
And because at 17, it's so difficult to select what you're going to make such a commitment.
Right.
We do give them that preview day so that they can see what the scholar and hear firsthand what the scholars have to say about being in the program and how they went ahead and made that decision.
What I know, teaching is it's a beautiful profession. It's a noble profession of giving of yourself and helping people, I guess, live their dreams in many ways, especially helping form children and teenagers, setting them on that path of adulthood. What skills do these scholars learn through the Golden Apple Foundation? What do they develop that's going to help them become the best teachers they can become?
Absolutely.
Maida?
They have a lot of classroom experience, so they'll find themselves in classrooms of need. They have over is how many? Is it
over 150 hours?
Over 150 hours of extra experience in a classroom. So,
what do you mean by extra? Is that tacked onto what they're already doing as part of their coursework, or what?
So depending on their university or their institution of their college or university, they have to do certain hours in a classroom. Tagged along to that, we will place them in classrooms during the summer, so they come in with those 150 or over 150 extra hours of classroom experience in schools of need.
And what's nice too is that in a lot of the colleges and universities, the way the education program is set up, that the students don't actually enter the classroom until junior or senior year.
Wow.
Some even
that's pretty late in your
some
studies.
even until spring. I mean, every college is going to be different, so not everyone is the same. But so what's nice is that our summer institute starts the summer before they even go to college, so they're in a classroom right away. So hopefully that confirms what they want to do. But again, if it doesn't, then earlier on rather than going 3 years into your college degree. And what's nice too for the students is that the summer before college, you get to experience 5 weeks away from home, kind of work the kinks out. It's a big adjustment for everyone.
Right.
And I think also what's amazing about our program is that since we're statewide, there are students coming from all over the state of Illinois. So you're going to have your Chicago public school kid, but you're also going to have your kid from Carbondale or, a rural farm in southern Illinois. And so getting that mix of students, and I think our scholars really gained extra kind of cultural competency from having this time before college to kind of meet students who are completely different from them and have very different backgrounds, I think helps them adjust to college a little bit.
And
more.
Of course, they get to challenge themselves with their varied experiences.
Right.
So, a lot of times they get an opportunity to find someone with a completely different experience. And through the reflective seminars at Summer Institute, they get to feed off of each other, feed creativity to each other, ideas that might have worked in their classrooms, and get feedback from their mentors at Summer Institute as well. So,
and you mentioned something I think it's really important to mention of people, especially when they're moving on to college. After this Summer Institute, if they say teaching's not for me, what happens then?
So if they said teaching's not for them, then we would just counsel them out of our program and into another major. So we hope when we select the students that we get the ones that are dedicated to teaching. But if it's not for them, it's better to know now, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like an engagement, I guess.
Yeah. And what's nice is they'll our tuition assistants, if they know beforehand. Part of our scholarship is that tuition assistance. So it's $2,500 each year for the first 2 years, and then it's $5,000 for the second 2 years each year. So if they don't receive that tuition assistance, they decide beforehand, then they won't.
There's no problem.
Yeah, then there's no problem. So.
Okay, great. Now, once a scholar, always a scholar. Once you graduate, what happens from and you have your degree and you're out there in the field working. What does Golden Apple do for you then, or how do you become part of that family you mentioned at the beginning of the show, Maida?
Well, I have this really beautiful story. I was invited to a career day over at Gary Elementary in Little Village, and I got a chance to look through one of our databases to find which scholars, if any, we had over at Gary Elementary. And there was this young lady, her name is Miss Castellanos, and she was a graduate from Gary Elementary. She attended from K through 8th grade.
Wow.
Graduated, went on to the University of Illinois. She was a Golden Apple Scholar. Graduated from the University of Illinois and went back to teach at Gary Elementary. So we find ways of maintaining that communication with the scholars, whether it is through volunteer opportunities to mentor new incoming scholars or to have courses during Summer Institute. So there's always ways to continue to contribute.
And so as part of the commitment as a scholar, when you sign your contract, when you're inducted into our organization, is that you teach for 5 years in a school of need. So once you graduate from college, those first 5 years are spent in a school of need. So that's part of the giving back to the organization and part of the contract.
And that contract, my curiosity is, does this family bond in other ways? Are there
We had two scholars who were married come into the office the other day to show us they're our future Golden Apple Scholar. We have scholar Golden Apple onesies. That is how much of a family, or what a close-knit family we are.
And I think also, like, a great story that I love is there was a teacher who, a kindergarten teacher was fired in the middle of the year, and so a Golden Apple Scholar was hired. She came into the classroom and it was just filthy. The kids were crazy.
Wow.
And this was way after her 5-year commitment, and she called on Golden Apple, and a bunch of different scholars and fellows came in on the weekends to help her set up the classroom and make it appropriate for those kindergartners. So I think just another example of our close network and our family.
And talking about that network and that family, you say that you have a relationship with organizations, with actually universities and colleges throughout the state, right?
Yes.
Correct.
And how do you nurture that relationship? How has that served you and served those institutions?
Well, so at 52
linear.
of our partner institutions in the state of Illinois, so part of the commitment is that you will attend one of our partner institutions. At each of our partner institutions, we have a liaison in the College of Education as well as in the financial aid office. And so we send what we call pizza dough down to each of the campuses.
Pizza dough.
Yeah, pizza dough. So it's money for each semester to have a pizza party.
Okay.
So the liaison will pull together our scholars and just talk to them about what's going on, keeping track, kind of form that little cohort once they're on campus. And we hear all the time from our liaisons that the Golden Apple Scholars are their favorite students in the College of Education.
They're typically graduating at higher rates than what the national average is, and higher rates than their respective institutions. So.
As well, yes.
And one statistic I hear about teachers is that most people that go into teaching are gone after 5 years, right? And they're like, oh, I love doing this, but I can't do it because it is such a difficult job. What's the number for former Golden Apple Scholars?
So for scholars who complete that 5-year teaching commitment, 84% of them will remain in the field of education. So
Wow.
they really are committed. And I think what helps them be committed is not only is just intrinsic, but I think we've given them the resources and the confidence to be successful in the classroom in those kind of high need environments, and I think that helps them feel happy in these settings and be successful.
And they feel supported as well. They do have mentors throughout that come visit them in their teaching commitments after the graduation from college. Throughout, whenever they need assistance, initially they're given $50 for their classrooms, or they receive a check for their classrooms to work or to start setting up their classroom, and then they have mentors come in and help them out with any assistance. So they feel very supported, and I think that's an important part of continuing an education, when you know that there's somebody to turn to.
Right, so these new teachers can come to their mentor, could call on their mentor, just email them at any point during those first 5 years or even beyond, and say, you know what, I really have a challenge, or I have this going on. What do you recommend? Is that the type of relationship that they develop?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. The mentors will come. I know we were just talking to one of our mentors who's wonderful, and she was saying how the scholar was really struggling, and the school was also struggling, and she came regularly to the classroom to help her kind of get everything on track. And now it's a completely different classroom. She's happy, the school's happy, the students are succeeding, and Barbara went, I think monthly to help her.
Wow.
Set up the classroom.
Set up the classroom and just give her techniques on how to connect with the first graders.
I'm sure first graders present their own set of challenges.
Yes, yeah.
Now, I want to get into more general questions because we're getting close to the end of the show. Why don't we have something like this at a national level? I think this country is in such a state of crisis with education constantly that it would do well to have something like this, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Your own opinions. So why do you think we don't have this, and how we could possibly replicate it?
I mean, the social stigma of what teaching is and what education is, the value that we place on teachers is very different than the values we have for bankers or the idea that we have for engineers, and they're just as important. We have teachers teaching engineers, and teachers who mold lawyers, and teachers who mold bankers. So it's really a social change that needs to come about in order for us to understand that there is prestige associated with teaching. It pays well. A lot of our students, what is that?
61% of our students, their first paycheck as a teacher will be more than their family income was when they applied to the program.
And they're doing so much in our classrooms that I would love to see a program like ours expand. I would love to see people begin to value teachers for all the hard work they do, all the hours they put in the face of all the challenges that they have, like severe poverty in classrooms where students can't focus on what they're being taught because they're hungry, or are dealing with social emotional issues in their communities. In Chicago, we hear about violence, but teachers are faced to, or are challenged to teach in classrooms with students dealing with all sorts of issues. So that change needs to come about.
Definitely. And a question for you, LANIER. How do you think, I know you have, you're not in charge of the organization, but how do you think Golden Apple will evolve in the coming time? Or what would you like to see?
Sure. So I know Golden Apple, we'd love to expand to include more scholars. This year we inducted our biggest class ever of 175 scholars, and we really want to expand. Recently with Chicago Public Schools, we entered into a contract with them to create more of a pathway program for CPS students to go through our program and then come back to teach in CPS. And I think we'd love to expand with that with other districts. I mean, we still are statewide, but just an example of that we need more funding in order to expand. And I think, always a goal for us to expand nationally would be wonderful. I think our scholars show, our scholars are very successful, and I think this program should be implemented nationally so that we have more wonderful teachers in the classroom.
Well, to both of you, thanks so much for coming out today and sharing this great information with us and with our audience.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
And to you, our audience, thank you for joining us. Community Forum is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Community Forum for local issues and concerns every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.